The Legend of Zelda on the Nintendo Entertainment System was a revolutionary title because once you enter an area and clear it of enemies, you can go back to that area again just to explore and see what secrets you may have missed. Before Zelda, there was Mario, and in Mario, you could only go in two directions, and if you tried to go back, the game wouldn't let you. The game provided a time limit, restrictions, and gave you a goal that you could only achieve by heading in one direction. Zelda removed the game's control on you and instead put the controller in your hands. If you don't want to go to the first dungeon in search of a princess, you don't have to. You can take a nice walk along the riverside instead. Although this approach was very simple at the time, it gave players their first sense of immersion, virtually creating a world with its own wildlife, people, and secrets. While there is a set goal, you are in possession of the controller and it's up to you to decide where you want to go. A lot of people think immersion means realism, and this isn't true at all. In Grand Theft Auto 5, Rockstar created a world with NPCs that have conversations while walking by, people driving, using turn signals, and they even stop their car at appropriate times. But this immersion is immediately broken once you enter a cutscene where the controller is taken from the player and you're left paused. I don't think this is a bad thing at all. I love Rockstar's cinematic way of telling a story. However, this style of storytelling can take away from players' immersion. Although in Cyberpunk 2077, I think the storytelling was approached in a very immersive way. When you make your way to a story mission in Cyberpunk, you still have full control over your character. You can move and look around while talking to other characters, and when the time comes to choose a dialogue option, the world doesn't stop around you. Something else I love about Cyberpunk is how seamless the cutscenes are. In the first mission of the game, when you go to climb a fence and fall onto these trash bags, it's all animated and out of the player's control, but still has the illusion of gameplay, and it's really successful. Almost everything in the world keeps you in control. If you need to buy a pop at a vending machine, you don't need to move your hand on the keyboard to press a button, but instead move your mouse to where you would point your finger and click. It's so mindless and engaging, and stuff like this is what brings you into the world of Cyberpunk. It's really nice seeing the developers of the game fixing what was broken and unfinished at launch, but it's important to remember that this shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be praising CD Projekt Red for fixing the game they sold for full price, but now that we're seeing what Cyberpunk is truly capable of, it's really impressive. I recommend buying the game if you haven't already. One of the best I've ever played. Speaking of games that keep the player in control, we can't avoid talking about the Half-Life series while we're at it. In Half-Life, you play as Gordon Freeman. Gordon doesn't talk and doesn't show any sign of life within his character, but he's on a mission to save the world from the Combine. Because Gordon has no exact personality, there's a lot of freedom in what you can do. Obviously, the enemies are a threat to the human race, but Gordon can be just as much of a threat if he wants to because he has the power to kill any NPC in the world. The sense of control is super immersive, and it's even present in the cutscenes like Cyberpunk. You can always move around and look wherever you want. Half-Life is the game that keeps on moving, and a lot of that game design is thanks to being released in 1998, when cutscenes would just take more time and money. But in this case, I think that the limitations benefited Half-Life's gameplay. Even more impressive, there's a variety of things that can happen around you, and you don't even need to look at it, but it creates a sense of dread that makes the world all the more immersive. On the other side of the spectrum, when we talk about player control and immersion, we have the weird case of Skyrim. Let's talk about Skyrim. Skyrim is massive. From the moment you leave the tutorial stage, you can go anywhere. You can be anything. You can avoid the story entirely and still have hundreds of gameplay hours to enjoy. Because there's so many skill traits to choose from and ways to make your character look, you can be anything and create your own sense of morality within the game. The roleplay aspect of Skyrim relies completely on the player's imagination, and even if you don't want to create your own story, you can just go along with the quests and do them exactly as the game wants you to. Skyrim is one of my favorite games, and I've only played it with mods necessary to fix bugs in the terrible VR port, so it's not like I've been playing a different game or anything. However, even though Skyrim is near and dear to my heart, it has some issues when it comes to immersion. There are no cutscenes in Skyrim. It allows you to take control of the player throughout the entire playthrough, but anytime you talk to somebody or somebody talks to you, that freedom is shattered, and the entire world freezes around you. It may seem like you can be anything you want to be. In reality, it's more like you can be any warrior you want to be. No matter where you go in Skyrim, you will always be killing bad guys, and bad guys will always be killing you. Here's an example. There are bards that will play music around the map, and if you ask them how they learn to play, they'll send you in the direction of the Bards College. The first time I asked about the Bards College, I was really excited to do the quest and learn music in Skyrim, because I thought it would be really fun to roleplay as a traveling bard. I mean, why else would you go for the college made for learning music, right? Upon arriving at the Bards College, you're sent on a quest to an ancient Nord ruin where you kill monsters and find a book. Do you see what I'm frustrated about here? In another case, a bartender in Whiterun offered me money if I cut firewood for her, but you can't can't actually do that job. It's just a line of dialogue. No matter what, you can never just be a citizen of Skyrim. You will always be the hero. You are forever cursed to walk a path of mayhem where you kill every sign of life that exists in the game just because you need to get more powerful. Also, every door you walk into, there is a loading screen. And I understand that this game is big, absolutely, but I don't think there has to be a loading screen just for this small house, and they actually do this for every building in Skyrim, which really takes you out of the illusion that it's a living, breathing world, when in reality, it's very clear that everything revolves around the player. Immersion in video games doesn't mean realism, it just means how much control the player has and how much the character fits in with the world. Zelda introduced an open world concept that has been used and expanded upon many times after its release in 1986. Funny enough, after the first Zelda, the franchise had a phase where it went super linear. I love Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, those two games are some of my favorite games ever, but it's hard to recommend them to people just because of how linear and tedious they are at times. Once the Switch came around, Nintendo took a step back on Zelda, and it proved to be successful because Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are now beloved games in the franchise. But yeah, immersion. What game caught your attention and glued you to the screen? For me, it's been Skyrim VR recently. I cannot stop playing it. I have this setup where I'm playing with NPC clothes and role-playing as a normal citizen that occasionally does bounty work. I also couldn't get my hands off GTA 4 when I played it for the first time 2 years ago. Let me know what you guys think is the most immersive experience, and I'll reply as soon as I can. Alright guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and make sure to have a good one.